Hunters is a 2020 Amazon TV series about Nazi hunting Jews in 1970s America, starring Logan Lerman, Lena Olin, and Al Pacino. Yes, that's right, Al Pacino in a TV series, the first episodic TV show he's ever done since going back all the way to his acting debut in NYPD in 1967. There's a little bit of film trivia for you. Usually when I review a TV show, I watch an entire season and then review it, but I decided to do Hunters episode by episode because, first of all, I might not end up watching the whole thing if I lose interest. It's something I do try to avoid, but it can be difficult to commit to a TV show. But the main reason is because it's so long. Episode 1 is 1.5 hours long. That's pretty much a feature-length film, and each of the 9 episodes that follow are all over 1 hour long, so there's a lot of content. I'm being honest, the only reason I checked this show out is because Pacino is in it. He's one of my favourite actors, one of the all-time greats, and I love that after about 2 decades of obscure pictures and crap films, he's found himself in the limelight again with an Oscar-nominated performance in Martin Scorsese's The Irishman and a cameo in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and now a substantial role in a series that is very popular. So in Hunters, we follow a quirky, ragtag, diverse group of Nazi killers seeking out Nazis that have escaped Germany and have integrated and assimilated into American society, and delivering them bloody vengeance. It's quite an interesting subject, because of course it happened in real life. In fact, the American government literally hired Nazi scientists after the war. I've seen a few films here and there that have touched upon the subject, like Dustin Hoffman's Marathon Man, but where Hunters is different is the tone. You have grief-stricken vigilante Jewish Holocaust survivors going after Nazis who are hidden in positions of authority in American society. Doctors, lawyers, politicians looking to form the Fourth Reich. And the police don't believe the Jews when they tell them these evil and ill-intending people are hiding in society, secretly pulling strings in the background. There's something ironic in that. But anyway, the tone of the series is not what you might expect. It could have been dry, heavy and weighty, and to be fair, it is actually. There are a lot of scenes that evoke a sense of despair and sadness at past atrocities, but the overall tone of the show is one of a wacky, cartoonish, almost Quentin Tarantino-ish collection of over-the-top violence and humour. It's a very colourful show, literally, as well as metaphorically, and I know now why this show has rubbed so many people up the wrong way. Of course, we do live in a time where people love to complain about anything, but I can't see what people are complaining about, and yet I can also see the other side. There was an opportunity to tell a story about the aftermath of World War II and how it affected Jewish survivors and their offspring. There was also an opportunity to tell a story of the crime of the US government and the CIA in their covert dealings with former Nazis. But it seems the showmakers weren't too interested in that. You have, for example, a flashback scene where a Nazi officer in a concentration camp forces a Jewish chess player into a game of chess with him, but the chess pieces are real human prisoners, and they have to kill each other when they take the positions of another piece. This was condemned by the Auschwitz Memorial, who said that inventing fake atrocities takes away from the real horrors that prisoners experienced, and could further fuel Holocaust deniers. Plus, there is another element of the show that is difficult to swallow, in the sense of Pacino's character always going around with this woe is me attitude about Jews being persecuted for eons. And of course, let's not take anything away from the persecution of Jews throughout history, especially the Holocaust, but some of the attitudes expressed in the show, like this whole thing about killing people before they've done anything, nipping in the bud, do come off as a little off-colour when you consider the atrocities and human rights violations that the State of Israel is currently committing, and was so during the time the show is set. With all that being said though, so many serious dramas have been made about World War II and the Holocaust. It's nice to see some people try something different. Plus, practically nothing is off limits these days when it comes to what you can make jokes of, so why should Nazism and the Holocaust be off limits? Anyway, the show isn't making fun of it, it just presents it in an over-the-top fashion. The best way to watch the show, I think, is to detach it from real-life events. Think of it as being set in an over-the-top cartoonish alternate reality. Of course they could have made some serious drama, something really sophisticated like Mindhunters or something. But clearly that wasn't the goal here, that wasn't the vision, so we should, as I always say, judge it on what it is and not what we wanted it to be. So in the first episode, we meet Jonah, played by Logan Lerman, a young man who drug deals to put food on the table for himself and his beloved grandma. One night, his mother is shot by a man who escapes before Jonah can get a good look at him, and during the funeral he meets Maya Offerman, played by Al Pacino, who says he knew his grandmother from years back and offers his services should Jonah need it. The two's paths cross again, and they don't really see eye to eye. Jonah thinks Offerman's a bit of an old weirdo, and Offerman's attempts to calm Jonah's anger and his thirst for revenge by telling him living well is the best revenge does little to help. Eventually Jonah does actually find his grandmother's killer, no thanks to the local unhelpful cops, and after several events occur, Offerman eventually reveals that he and Jonah's grandmother were part of a secret Nazi hunting team, and Jonah joins them, setting the scene for the rest of the series. Meanwhile, an FBI agent investigates the death of a German woman who worked for NASA, which it seems is about to unveil a huge conspiracy. I did enjoy this first episode. The general consensus of the show, from what I hear online, is that it begins to deteriorate as it goes on after a strong start. But we must form our own opinions, and I found it very interesting. It held my attention throughout. I found the drama and the serious aspects of the show fulfilling, and there were a few gotcha moments, like the opening scene of the typical American married father entertaining friends with a garden barbecue. And in a really engrossing way, the show tells us that it turns out he's actually a Nazi, having hidden his accent and even married and worked his way up the American dream ladder, but retained his beliefs and being part of a secret underworld Nazi society. The acting was quite good. Lerman is a solid lead as a young, grieving, angry man, and though the Italian-American Al Pacino seems like a weird pick to play a Jewish mentor, you quickly get used to his accent, even though there was one or two instances where I felt his accent did slip, though this might be foreshadowing to a rumour I heard that he isn't quite what he seems. It was nice to see Pacino though, it always is, and he did a good job. The bad guys are a little over the top though. I mean, I guess it's consistent with what the show's going for. But there's a few weird parts, like this one part where one guy is staring into space, literally crying his eyes out, going, Heil Hitler, out of his love for Nazism. It can be a bit cringeworthy and a bit trying too hard, if you know what I mean. As mentioned, it's a very colourful show. I love colours. I love it when shows and movies have vivid colour schemes, because so many films and shows are so dark and dreary these days. There were some clever and inventive uses of the camera, things like lengthy dolly shots that move up, down, left, right, and even upside down. I don't have any complaints. It was a good episode. Hunters, or at the very least the first episode, seems to be a series with a comic book framework. The protagonist's journey felt like a superhero origin. There are numerous comic book references, and the tone is very campy in places and over the top. But so far it has managed to weave the serious parts with the outlandish elements pretty well. I will be checking out the rest of the show. Thanks for watching.